I've incinerated 43 people in the last 6 years. That's not counting the ones who were already dead when they arrived, which technically aren't my problem but still end up in my chamber. I'm supposed to call them reclamation events, but that feels like the kind of word that lets you pretend you're doing something noble instead of scraping human tissue off teleportation chamber walls with a tungsten blade. The job posting said, Biohazard Disposal Technician. What it meant was, someone has to clean up when the teleportation goes wrong. Today's shift starts the way most of them do. The alert comes through on my wristband at 6:47 a.m., 14 minutes after I clock in. Category 3, Reclamation, Chamber 18, immediate response required. Category 3 means partial fusion with chamber materials or personal belongings. Category 1 is just death, organ failure, brain hemorrhage, the kind of thing that happens when your molecular structure gets reassembled slightly off. Category 2 is fusion with other passengers, which doesn't happen often because the chamber's a single occupancy. Category 4 is reserved for the ones that are still alive. I grab my kit from the prep room, injector loaded with thermal catalyst, the tungsten scraper, the vacuum reservoir, 2 pairs of nitrile gloves because 1 pair never survives the full job. Yuki Tamada is already at the monitoring station, pulling up the jump data on her screen. She's my partner, which means she handles the paperwork and runs the decontamination protocols while I do the actual disposal. She's been in reclamation for 2 years, young enough that she still has a sense of humor about it, but old enough to know when to shut up. Male, 52, jumped from the downtown hub at 6:31, she says without looking at me. Stream lock occurred at 17 seconds. Reconstruction algorithm encountered data corruption in the lower thoracic region. He came through attached to his briefcase and approximately 40 kilograms of chamber lining. Stream lock is what happens when matter gets trapped mid-transmission, suspended in the quantum buffer while the system tries to figure out what to do with you. 17 seconds is a long time to be stuck as data. Long enough for things to get confused about where you end, and everything else begins. I don't ask his name. That's rule 1. Never learn their names. Royce taught me that my first day, along with rule 2, never check the passenger manifest, and rule 3, which is never tell anyone what you see. The rules exist because this job requires a specific kind of blindness, the ability to see a human being as a malfunction that needs correction. Chamber 18 is in the industrial wing, away from the public terminals. The company, Telecorp, which handles 70% of civilian teleportation in the Northern Territories, keeps the disposal chambers separate from regular operations. Can't have passengers watching us wheel body bags through the waiting area. Bad for business. The teleportation industry runs on a 99.9999% success rate, which sounds impressive until you remember that 0.0001% of millions of jumps per day adds up to people like me having steady employment. The chamber door is sealed with biohazard protocols, red light above the frame indicating active contamination. I scan my ID badge and the lock disengages with a mechanical thunk that I feel through the floor. The door weighs 300 kilograms, reinforced steel lined with quantum shielding to prevent interference with adjacent chambers. It swings open and I see what used to be a man. He's fused to the back wall of the chamber, his body spread across the metal surface like he's been pressed into it. His legs are elongated, the bones visible through skin that's stretched translucent. One arm ends at the elbow, the rest of it melted into the chrome plating that lines the chamber's interior. The briefcase is embedded in his torso, the leather and metal melted into his ribcage so that I can see the brass clasps protruding through his sternum like tumors. His head is tilted back, jaw dislocated and hanging open, and I can see that his trachea is half filled with what looks like polymer resin from the case's interior lining. The worst part is his eye. The right one is gone, socket collapsed, but the left one is intact and tracking movement. He's watching me. The reconstruction algorithm tried to finish the job, triggered his autonomic nervous system, even though most of his voluntary muscle control is gone. His fingers twitch against the wall. 3 of them, anyway. The others are fused to the metal. I've learned not to think about what they're experiencing in these moments. The brain is still sending signals, still trying to make sense of input from a body that doesn't work anymore. Pain receptors firing in patterns that shouldn't be possible. I pull the injector from my kit and check the catalyst load. Full reservoir, enough to flash combust approximately 90 kilograms of organic matter. The thermal catalyst is a chemical compound that reacts with carbon-based tissue, raising the temperature to 1800 degrees Celsius in under 3 seconds. It's faster than fire and more complete. What's left after is a fine ash that can be vacuumed up and processed through the facility's filtration system. I approach him, the reclamation event, and place the injector against what's left of his neck. The eye follows me. I've stopped wondering if they understand what's happening. It doesn't change anything. I press the trigger. The catalyst disperses through his cardiovascular system, following the pathways of whatever's left of his circulatory network. There's a moment where nothing happens, and then the tissue begins to glow from within, a deep orange that spreads outward from the injection site. The smell would be overwhelming if I let myself notice it. But I learned years ago to breathe through my mouth in short, controlled draws. The body combusts in sections, the organic matter burning away while the inorganic, chamber lining, metal clasps, and the briefcase's heat-softened polymer components remain behind. The eye is last to go, the moisture in it boiling off before the surrounding tissue ignites. The whole process takes 90 seconds. When it's done, I'm left with a chamber wall covered in ash residue and the melted remains of a briefcase fused to heat-warped metal. I pull out the tungsten scraper and start the mechanical work of removing the rubble. The blade is designed for this. Hard enough to scrape carbonized tissue off steel, thin enough to get into the gaps where bone fragments lodge. I work methodically, top to bottom, scraping the residue into the vacuum reservoir. I remember my first day with perfect clarity, because it's the last time I felt anything close to a normal human reaction to this work. I was 31 years old, recently divorced, desperately broke, and willing to take a job that paid 3 times the standard wage for biohazard work. Royce met me in the prep room, a man in his 50s with burn scars running up both forearms and the kind of face that looked carved from old wood, all hard angles and weathered surfaces. He didn't shake my hand. "You read the contract?" he asked me. I had, extensively. The non-disclosure agreement alone was 40 pages, full of clauses about corporate espionage, criminal penalties for information leaks, and mandatory psychological evaluations every 6 months. I'd signed it anyway because my bank account had $17 in it, and my ex-wife's lawyer was still sending bills. "Good," Royce said. "Forget everything it told you about public relations and company image. Here's the truth. Telecorp's 99.9999% success rate is real. Everything else is a lie. That 0.0001% doesn't die cleanly. They don't vanish. They don't get lost in the quantum buffer. They arrive as biological catastrophes, and someone has to make them disappear." He walked me to Chamber 11 and showed me my first reclamation event. It was a woman, or it had been. The jump had fused her with another passenger, something that shouldn't be possible because the chambers are single occupancy. But the system had routed 2 data streams into one reconstruction matrix. What came through was a single entity, 2 spinal columns braided together, limbs protruding from wrong angles, 2 faces on one skull. One of them was screaming. The sound came out wet because the throat wasn't properly connected to lungs. I vomited in the corner of the chamber. Royce waited until I was finished, then handed me the injector. 3 rules, he said. Never learn their names. Never check the passenger manifest. Never tell anyone what you see. Follow those rules and you can do this job. Break them and you'll end up on mandatory psychological leave, which means you'll be replaced, which means you'll never work in the industry again. He paused. And you'll spend the rest of your life knowing what you saw here and having no one to talk to about it. I administered the catalyst. My hands shook so badly, I nearly dropped the injector, but I got it into the neck of the screaming face and pressed the trigger. The burning took longer than it should have because there was so much tissue, 2 bodies worth of matter to combust. When it was done, I scraped the walls for 40 minutes while Royce watched. He didn't offer to help. "You'll learn to see it as work," he told me when I was finished. "Not people, just work. The ones who can't make that shift don't last." He was right. It took me 6 months, but I learned. I learned to notice the technical details, the type of fusion, the estimated mass, the efficiency of the catalyst burn, instead of the human ones. I learned to arrive at the chamber, process the reclamation event, file the completion report, and go home without carrying any of it with me. I learned that the mind can categorize anything if you give it the right framework. These aren't murders, they're malfunctions. I'm not covering up deaths, I'm maintaining the system. I finish scraping chamber 18 and activate the vacuum. The reservoir hums as it pulls the ash residue into its filtration system, reducing everything that was once a 52-year-old man into particulate matter that will eventually be compressed into waste blocks and shipped to a reclamation facility where they'll be vitrified into inert glass-ceramic aggregate for industrial use. Efficient. Clean. The chamber looks almost pristine when I'm done. Just some scoring on the back wall where the metal warped under the heat. Yuki is waiting for me in the monitoring station when I emerge. She's got the completion forms ready, the cursor blinking in the field where I need to confirm successful disposal. I scan my ID badge and authorize the report. Another reclamation event processed. Another day of work documented in the company's internal records that will never see external review. "That's 5 this month," Yuki says. She's leaning back in her chair, 1 foot propped against the edge of the desk. "We usually average 2. Statistical variance," I tell her. It's what Royce always says when the numbers fluctuate. Teleportation processes 8 million jumps per day in the Northern Territories alone. A slight increase in failures is mathematically inevitable. Maybe. Yuki pulls up a datasheet on her screen, rows of numbers that I recognize as jump success rates from the past 6 months. But I heard something from one of the night shift techs. They're saying the new teleport hubs, the ones they rushed into service last quarter to handle increased passenger volume, might not have finished full calibration testing. I shut that conversation down immediately. We incinerate the problems. We don't solve them. Yuki's mouth tightens, but she doesn't argue. She knows the rules same as I do. Our job is disposal, not investigation. The moment we start asking questions about why the failures happen is the moment we become a liability to the company. Telecorp has an entire division dedicated to maintaining public confidence in teleportation technology. That division does not appreciate employees who speculate about system flaws. I finish the shift documentation and clock out at 3:47 p.m. 9 hours, 1 reclamation event, standard rate of pay plus hazard compensation. The money goes into my account automatically, and I'll spend it the same way I spend every paycheck. Rent, food, utilities, the minimum payment on the debt my ex-wife left me with when she took half of everything we owned and then some. My apartment is 40 minutes away by ground transport. I could jump there in 90 seconds, but I haven't used teleportation in 6 years. Not since I started this job and learned what happens when it goes wrong. Most people don't think about it. They see the success rate and trust the numbers. I see the 0.0001% and wonder if today is the day I become part of it. The apartment is small. 3 rooms in a residential block that used to be middle class, before teleportation killed the commuter economy and property values collapsed in the outer districts. I live alone. I've lived alone since Grace left 3 years ago, citing irreconcilable differences that boiled down to, "I can't recognize you anymore." She wasn't wrong. I look at photos from our wedding and barely remember the person I was then, someone who thought he'd end up teaching biology at a university, who had opinions about music and politics, who laughed at things. I microwave dinner, pre-packaged protein blend with reconstituted vegetables the kind that tastes like the factory that made it. All chemical preservation and textured soy that's been processed until it's technically food but nothing more. I try to watch entertainment streams on my wall screen. Some drama about corporate espionage that's supposed to be thrilling, but I can't focus. My attention slides off the images, refuses to engage. I end up lying on my bed staring at the ceiling. 63 tiles across, 41 down. I counted them the first night I moved in here, and I've been counting them every night since. It's the ritual that lets me sleep. The repetitive mental task that occupies the part of my brain that wants to think about other things. 63 by 41 equals 2,583 tiles. 2,583 identical white squares with slightly beveled edges, arranged in a perfect grid. Grace used to ask me why I did it. I told her it helped me relax. She stopped asking after a while, the same way she stopped asking about my day or what I wanted for dinner or if I was okay. She just watched me become someone else. Someone hollowed out and replaced with a person-shaped space that went to work, came home, counted ceiling tiles, and slept. I closed my eyes. 63, 41, 2,573. Tomorrow, there will be another alert. Another chamber. Another person who trusted the 99.9999% and lost. And I'll pull on my gloves, load the injector, and make them disappear. That's the job. That's what I do. I tell myself it's just work. Most days I almost believe it. The alert comes at 11:47 p.m., 3 days after the Chamber 18 reclamation. I'm at home, halfway through my ceiling tile count, when my wristband starts vibrating in a pattern I've only seen twice before. Rapid pulses, 15 seconds apart, the emergency code for Category 4. Category 4 means they're still alive. I'm moving before I finish processing the thought, pulling on clothes, grabbing my keys. The wristband displays 2 words: immediate response. No chamber number, no jump data. Just the command to get to the facility as fast as possible. Ground transport takes 23 minutes at this hour. I spend the entire ride trying to construct a mental framework for what I'm about to see, the same way I did in my first year when every reclamation event required advanced preparation. Category 4s are rare because the reconstruction algorithm usually fails completely when the damage is catastrophic enough to leave someone conscious. The system is designed to prioritize vital functions: brain, heart, lungs, and if those can't be reconstructed properly, the whole process aborts and you get a Category 1 instead. Dead on arrival, nervous system never reactivated. But sometimes the algorithm gets confused about what's vital. Sometimes it reconstructs a brain that's functional enough to maintain consciousness, but attached to a body that's been fundamentally rewritten. Those are the ones that scream. The facility is lit up when I arrive, every window in the industrial wing burning white. That's wrong. We keep those sections dark during off hours to avoid attracting attention from the residential blocks nearby. I scan my badge at the entrance and the door opens immediately, no security checkpoint delay. Inside, I can see 3 people in the monitoring station. Yuki, even though she's not scheduled for night shift, and 2 others I don't recognize in suits that mark them as management level. Royce meets me in the corridor outside the prep room. He looks like he's aged a decade since I saw him last. The burn scars on his forearms seem darker, more pronounced, and he's got both hands pressed flat against the wall like he needs the support to stay upright. "You need to see this," he says, "before security protocols engage." That's the second wrong thing. Security protocols engage automatically for all Category 4 events. Chamber lockdown, biohazard containment, restricted access. The fact that I'm here before those protocols activate means someone with executive authority decided I needed to see whatever's in that chamber before it becomes officially documented. "What chamber?" I ask. 19. Chamber 19 is adjacent to 18, part of the industrial wing's disposal section. We almost never use it because Chamber 18 handles the volume efficiently enough. The fact that it's active means this reclamation event is either too large for standard containment or too sensitive for regular processing. Royce walks me there without speaking. His gait is off, each step deliberate, like he's thinking about where to place his feet. When we reach the chamber door, I see why the facility is lit up. There are 6 people in the observation corridor, 3 in biohazard suits, 2 in corporate security uniforms, and 1 man in a dark suit with a tablet in his hands. The man with the tablet looks at me when I approach, his gaze traveling from my face to my ID badge and back. He doesn't introduce himself. He just makes a note on his tablet and steps aside. The chamber door is sealed with biohazard protocols 3 levels higher than standard. Red light, yellow light, and a blue warning indicator I've never seen before that blinks in sequence. Biological hazard. Critical response required. Executive oversight active. Royce scans his badge and the locks disengage one by one, each releasing with a mechanical sound that travels up through my legs and settles in my chest. The door opens. I've been doing this job for 6 years. I've seen bodies fused with briefcases, chamber walls, other passengers, their own luggage. I've seen a woman who came through with her skeleton on the outside of her body, bones reconstructed in reverse so that her skin was inside her ribcage, and her organs were exposed like medical diagrams. I've seen a man whose circulatory system materialized 6 inches to the left of where it should have been. Veins and arteries suspended in open air while his body tried to pump blood through connections that didn't exist. I've learned to catalog the horror, process it as data, maintain the clinical distance that lets me load the injector and do the work. But I've never seen someone I know. The body is fused to the back wall of Chamber 19, spread across the surface like it's been absorbed into the metal itself. The legs are extended downward, elongated beyond normal human proportion. The femurs visible through skin that's stretched so thin it looks translucent. Both feet have merged with the chamber's floor plating, toes webbed into the seams between panels. The right arm ends at the shoulder, the rest of it melted into the chrome-lined wall in a pattern that resembles tree roots growing through concrete, branching, splitting, disappearing into the metal substrate. The left arm is mostly intact, hanging limp, fingers splayed against the observation window like someone reaching for help. The torso is wrong. The ribcage has collapsed inward on the left side, pushed flat against the spine, while the right side protrudes outward in a way that suggests the bones tried to reconstruct themselves but couldn't find the proper spatial coordinates. I can see something that looks like graphene filament from the chamber's quantum mesh embedded in the chest cavity, thin black threads running through muscle tissue like veins. The head is turned away, facing the left side of the chamber. Long hair, dark brown, matted with blood that's dried in patterns suggesting it's been here for hours. The skull looks misshapen, compressed on one side, and I can see the jaw is dislocated, hanging at an angle that would make speech impossible. Then the head turns. It's slow, like watching a surveillance camera rotate through its tracking arc. The neck muscles are visible through the skin, contracting and releasing in sequences that shouldn't be possible with that degree of tissue damage. The face comes into view in sections, jaw first, dislocated and hanging open, then the cheek, then the eye socket on the right side, which is completely empty, just a dark hollow where the orbital bone is exposed. The left eye is intact. It focuses on me. I know that eye. I've seen it across a table in a university dining hall, arguing about whether consciousness could survive digital conversion. I've seen it at my wedding, watching me make promises I didn't keep. I've seen it 2 years ago in a coffee shop, filled with disappointment and anger when I told him I couldn't help him, couldn't support his crusade against the teleportation industry, couldn't risk my job for his principles. Daniel Carraway, my best friend from university, the man who was my best man, the man I haven't spoken to in 2 years because I chose to keep working for the company he was trying to expose. My vision narrows to a pinpoint, everything peripheral going grey and indistinct. I'm suddenly aware that I'm standing on exactly 14 floor tiles between me and the observation window. I counted them without meaning to, my brain latching onto the only framework it knows for processing the unbearable. 14 tiles, each one standard issue, 40 centimeters square, arranged in a perfect grid. I can feel my pulse behind my eyes, each beat making the room throb in rhythm. I try to take a breath, but my lungs won't expand properly. The air sits in my throat, refusing to go deeper, and I have to force it down like swallowing glass. I'm aware of my own breathing in a way I've never been before, conscious of every mechanical movement required to stay alive, suddenly terrified that the process could fail the same way teleportation fails. Everything working fine until it isn't, until your body forgets how to be a body and becomes something else instead. James. Royce's voice sounds distant, filtered through water. I need you to step back. I don't move. I'm watching Daniel's eye track my position. The fingers on his visible hand twitch, 3 of them curling inward like he's trying to make a fist. His jaw works up and down, the dislocated mandible moving through empty space. No sound comes out. His vocal cords are probably fused with chamber material, reconstructed in the wrong location, or simply absent from this version of his body. He can't hear you, Royce says. The algorithm reconstructed his brainstem and most of his autonomic nervous system, but the auditory processing centers didn't integrate properly. He's tracking movement, not sound, just reflexes. I find my voice. How long has he been here? Jump occurred at 6:18 p.m., 7 hours ago. Royce moves closer to me, his posture defensive like he thinks I might do something unpredictable. Security flagged the event immediately. Executive oversight was activated within 12 minutes. Executive oversight means corporate management was notified before standard disposal protocols engaged. That only happens in 2 situations. When a reclamation event involves a passenger with diplomatic or political significance, or when the failure is intentional. I turn to look at Royce and he won't meet my eyes. That tells me everything I need to know. This wasn't an accident, I say. No. Royce's voice is flat, stripped of inflection. Priority passenger flag in the system. Daniel Carraway, 38 years old, senior research engineer for Axiom Gate. Axiom Gate is Telecorp's primary competitor, a smaller company that's been trying to break the teleportation monopoly for the past decade. He jumped from the downtown hub at 6:12 p.m. The system logged a manual override in the quantum buffer at 6:16. Someone altered his data stream mid-transmission. The words arrange themselves in my mind, but they won't form a coherent picture. Someone killed him, using the teleportation system. Why? Royce finally looks at me and his expression is carved from stone. Because he knew something. Because he was meeting someone. Because someone with executive access to the teleportation network decided he was a problem that needed solving. He pauses. You need to leave. Now. Go home. This didn't happen. You never saw this. I look back at the chamber. Daniel's eye is still tracking me. That perfect focus that makes me wonder how much of him is actually present in what's left of his brain. His fingers twitch again, all 3 of them, and I see his thumb move slightly like he's trying to activate something. He spent his entire career working on teleportation safety protocols, trying to identify failure points in the system, advocating for slower expansion and more rigorous testing. 2 years ago, he begged me to help him, said he had evidence that Telecorp was covering up a higher failure rate than publicly disclosed. I told him I couldn't risk my job. I told him to stop looking for conspiracies. I told him he was wrong. I knew him, I say. Royce goes very still. What? Daniel, I knew him. We went to university together. He was my best man. The silence in the observation corridor is absolute. I can hear someone behind me stop typing on their tablet. One of the security officers shifts position, the fabric of his uniform making a sound like paper tearing. Royce grabs my arm, his grip hard enough to leave marks. You need to leave, right now. You never saw this, you don't know who this is, do you understand me? He was right. I can't stop looking at Daniel's eye, that single point of consciousness trapped in a body that's been deliberately destroyed. He was right about all of it. The failures aren't random. Someone is using the system to kill people. James. Royce pulls me away from the window, forces me to look at him. If you say that out loud again, if you admit to anyone that you recognized this man, you will be in the next chamber. Do you understand? They will kill you. They will make it look like a jump failure, and I will have to incinerate what's left and file the paperwork and pretend I never knew your name. Behind us, someone clears their throat. I turn and see the man in the dark suit approaching, tablet still in his hands. He's thin, somewhere in his 50s, with silver hair and a face that looks like it's never been surprised by anything. His suit is expensive, the kind of tailored perfection that costs more than I make in 6 months. James Aldrin, he says. It's not a question. Biohazard disposal technician, employed by Telecorp for 6 years. Security clearance level 7, psychological evaluation status, cleared with recommendations for continued monitoring. He looks up from his tablet. I'm Mr. Simon, Compliance and Risk Management. I'm here to ensure proper protocols are observed. He doesn't say anything else. He just watches me with the kind of attention that makes my skin feel too tight, like my body is suddenly one size too small for my skeleton. He's not threatening. He's not even unfriendly. He's just present, observing, making notes on his tablet about everything he sees. Royce's grip on my arm tightens. Aldrin is going home. He clocked out at 15:47 today. He's not scheduled for disposal work on this event. Of course, Mr. Simon makes another note. I'm sure Mr. Aldrin understands the importance of discretion regarding sensitive reclamation events. His eyes find mine and hold them, particularly when those events involve individuals with connections to corporate espionage or intellectual property theft. That's the official story then. Daniel wasn't murdered for knowing too much. He was a corporate spy, and his death was an unfortunate accident that happened to occur while he was illegally carrying stolen data. Clean, simple, impossible to disprove once he's been reduced to ash residue and vacuum sealed into waste blocks. I understand, I hear myself say. Excellent. Mr. Simon steps aside, creating a clear path to the exit. I'll note in my report that you responded to an emergency alert but were dismissed before engaging in disposal work. No further action required. I let Royce guide me toward the corridor, away from Chamber 19 and Daniel's eye and the weight of everything I've spent 6 years refusing to see. But I stop at the doorway, turning back for one last look. Daniel's hand is still pressed against the observation window, 3 fingers curled inward. And I realize what he's been trying to do. He's trying to make a gesture, the same one we used to make at each other in university when one of us was being deliberately obtuse about something obvious. 3 fingers down, thumb and pinky extended. Our private signal for, you're not seeing it. He knows I'm here. Whatever's left of his consciousness, whatever fragment of Daniel Carraway survived the reconstruction algorithm's attempts to make sense of his corrupted data stream, he knows I'm here and he's trying to tell me something. Then his hand goes still. The eye stops tracking. The fingers relax against the glass. I watch his chest stop attempting to expand, the twitching muscles along his visible ribs going slack. The algorithm finally gives up, autonomous functions shutting down in sequence as the damage proves too extensive to sustain. Daniel Carraway dies for the 2nd time while I watch. Royce pulls me into the corridor, and the chamber door seals behind us. I hear the locks engage one by one, and then the sound of the thermal catalyst system activating. They're not waiting for me to do the disposal. They're burning him now, right now, before anyone else can see. Before any evidence can be preserved. Before his death can become anything other than an unfortunate malfunction in a system that's 99.9999% reliable. I make it to the facility bathroom before my knees stop working. I end up sitting on the floor, back against the wall, counting the tiles, because it's the only thing my brain knows how to do when the world stops making sense. 12 tiles from wall to wall, 16 from door to far wall, 192 tiles total. Daniel is burning in Chamber 19. His body is being reduced to ash, His death will be classified as an unfortunate accident. His research, whatever he discovered about Telecorp's true failure rate, will disappear with him. And I will go home, count my ceiling tiles, and pretend I never knew his name. That's what Royce expects. What Mr. Simon expects. What the entire corporate infrastructure of Telecorp expects. I'm a disposal technician. I incinerate problems and file paperwork and maintain the system. That's my job. That's what I've been doing for 6 years. But Daniel's hand was making that gesture. 3 fingers down. You're not seeing it. I'm not in the bathroom anymore. I'm moving through the facility corridors, walking with purpose, my badge in my hand. I know where I'm going before I consciously decide to go there. The Manifest Archive, located in the administrative wing on the 3rd floor. Digital records of every jump processed through the Northern Territories network, accessible only to personnel with Level 7 clearance or higher. I have Level 7 clearance. Rule 2. Never check the passenger manifest. I'm breaking it. The archive terminal is unattended at this hour. Just a desk with a computer interface and a biometric scanner. I place my hand on the scanner and wait for the green light. Access granted. I pull up the jump records for today's date and scroll to Daniel Carraway's entry. Departure, 6:12 p.m. Downtown Hub. Destination, Industrial District Hub. Estimated arrival, 6:13 p.m. Status, critical failure, Category 4 reclamation. But there's more data in the file. Travel history, jump frequency, destination patterns. Daniel made 3 jumps this week, all to different locations in the city. Meeting with patent lawyers, meeting with engineers from competing firms, meeting with someone listed only as external contact, priority flag. I dig deeper, pulling up his message logs. Telecorp monitors all communications sent through the Teleportation network, part of the terms of service everyone agrees to without reading. Daniel's last message was sent at 6:11 p.m., 1 minute before his jump. Recipient, someone named Michelle Carraway, his wife. I remember her from the wedding, a woman with kind eyes who worked as a teacher and laughed at Daniel's terrible jokes. The message says, "Meeting went well. I'll be home by 7. Love you." The message after that, queued at 6:16 p.m. for post-arrival delivery, exactly when Royce said the manual override occurred, is to someone named Malcolm Wallace. I search the name and find he's an investigative journalist who's written articles about corporate accountability and government oversight. The message contains 3 words: I have proof. The message never delivered. Status: aborted during streamlock. Someone killed Daniel in the 90 seconds between him trying to send evidence to a journalist and his body arriving in Chamber 19 as a biological catastrophe. Someone with executive access to the teleportation network. Someone who could trigger a manual override. Someone who could alter the quantum buffer mid-transmission and turn a human being into a grotesque fusion of flesh and metal. I copy the files to my wristband's local storage, a violation of approximately 15 different corporate policies and 3 federal laws. Then, I erase my access logs and disconnect from the terminal. I don't know what I'm going to do with this information. I don't know if it matters. Daniel is already dead, his body being reduced to ash residue while I sit here stealing data that will probably get me killed if anyone discovers I have it. But he made that gesture. 3 fingers down. The facility corridor is empty when I emerge from the administrative wing. I walk past the disposal chambers, past the prep room, past the monitoring station where Yuki is still working at her terminal. She looks up when I pass, and I wonder what she sees in my face. I make it to the exit before she catches up with me. I hear her footsteps behind me, rapid and purposeful, and then her hand on my shoulder stopping me mid-stride. "Did you know him?" she asks. I should lie. Rule 1, never learn their names. Rule 2, never check the passenger manifest. Rule 3, never tell anyone what you see. 3 simple rules that have kept me employed, kept me functional, kept me from becoming another person who saw too much and couldn't carry it. "Yes," I say. Yuki doesn't look surprised. She just nods, like I've confirmed something she already suspected. 5 failures this month. I checked the records. All 5 were researchers, activists, or people with connections to Axiom Gate or other competing firms. Before this month, we averaged 2 failures. Before this year, the pattern was completely random. Demographic distribution matched general passenger profiles. But starting 11 months ago, the failures stopped being random. She pulls out her own wristband and activates a data file. I see rows of names, dates, jump records. 47 entries. 47 people who died in teleportation failures over the past 18 months. And every single one has a notation. Corporate threat, intellectual property risk, regulatory witness, competition asset. I've been documenting it, Yuki says. Waiting for someone else to notice. Waiting for someone to care. She looks at me and her expression is completely devoid of the dark humor she usually wears like armor. We're not janitors, James. We're not even disposal technicians. We're executioners. We clean up after state-sanctioned murders and we file the paperwork and we go home and pretend we don't know what we're doing. I stare at the data on her screen. 47 names that represent 47 people who trusted the 99.9999% success rate and ended up as ash residue in waste blocks. Daniel is number 48. What do you want me to do? I ask. I don't know. Yuki's voice is quiet, almost defeated. I have all this data, I have proof. But I can't leak it without getting killed. And even if I could, who would believe it? Telecorp has been the most trusted company in the Northern Territories for 15 years. They've got government contracts, regulatory approval, public confidence. One disposal technician claiming they're running an assassination program. That's not news. That's a conspiracy theory from a disgruntled employee. She deactivates her wristband and the data disappears. I needed to know if I was crazy, if I was seeing patterns that didn't exist. But you recognized him. That man in Chamber 19. You knew him. Daniel Carraway. He was my best friend. I'm sorry. Yuki looks like she means it. I'm sorry you had to see that. I'm sorry any of this is real. We stand in the exit corridor. 2 disposal technicians with evidence of corporate murder and no idea what to do with it. Behind us, somewhere in the facility, Daniel's body is finishing its burn cycle. In 6 hours, he'll be nothing but ash residue. Tomorrow, someone will file the completion paperwork. Next week, his wife Michelle will receive notification of his death, along with the standard condolence package and liability waiver. And I'll go back to work, load the injector, scrape the chambers clean, and maintain the system. Unless I don't. I need to think, I tell Yuki. I need to figure out what this means. She nods. Just be careful. If they're monitoring Daniel Carraway's contacts, they'll be watching everyone who knew him. That probably includes you. I think about Mr. Simon in his expensive suit, making notes on his tablet, observing everything with that measured attention. About the notation in my file. Psychological evaluation status cleared with recommendations for continued monitoring. They're already watching me. I leave the facility and walk to the ground transport station. The ride home takes 26 minutes, and I spend the entire time staring at the data on my wristband, Daniel's message logs and jump records, and the proof that he was murdered for trying to expose the truth. My apartment is exactly as I left it. Small, empty, the wall screen still showing the entertainment stream I couldn't focus on. I sit on my bed and look at the ceiling. 63 tiles across, 41 down, 2,583 total. I try to count them, but the numbers won't stay in my head. They keep getting replaced by other numbers. 48 murders. 6 years I've been doing this job. 43 people I've incinerated. How many of them were deliberate? How many were people like Daniel, killed for knowing too much or asking the wrong questions or threatening the system? How many times have I been an executioner instead of a disposal technician? I close my eyes, but I can still see Daniel's hand against the observation window, 3 fingers curled, trying to tell me something I refused to see for 6 years. I'm seeing it now, and I don't know what to do about it. I spend the night staring at my ceiling tiles and watching the data on my wristband, scrolling through Daniel's message logs over and over, like repetition will make them mean something different. At 4:17 a.m., I give up on the pretense of rest and sit at my kitchen table with a glass of water I don't drink, trying to construct a plan from the pieces I have. The data Yuki showed me. The 47 names. Daniel's intercepted message to Malcolm Wallace, the journalist. My own access to the manifest archives. Somewhere in those fragments is a pattern. A way to prove that Telecorp isn't just covering up failures, but actively causing them. But proof doesn't matter if I can't access it without getting killed. And even if I could access it, I don't know what to do with it. Send it to journalists like Daniel tried? He's dead. Leak it anonymously? Telecorp has entire divisions dedicated to suppressing information and discrediting sources. Go to the government. Royce's warning echoes in my head. If this is happening with executive oversight, if compliance officers like Mr. Simon are observing the murders and making notes instead of stopping them, then the government already knows. My wristband vibrates at 6:33 a.m. Message from Yuki. Meet me before shift. Parking structure. Level 3. I take ground transport to the facility and arrive at 7:45, 15 minutes early. The parking structure is mostly empty at this hour, just a few vehicles belonging to night shift workers finishing their rotations. Yuki is waiting by the north stairwell, leaning against the concrete wall with her arms crossed. She's wearing her standard work clothes, but her hair is different, pulled back tight instead of loose, and I realize it's because she's preparing for something that requires focus. I have a plan, but it requires breaking about 15 protocols, and if we get caught, we're both dead. Tell me. The executive logs are stored on an isolated server in the administrative wing, 4th floor. No network connection to prevent external hacking, which means physical access only. Your clearance gets you into the building, but not that specific server room. It requires level 9 authorization, which is executive management only. She pulls out her wristband and displays a schematic of the facility's 4th floor. But there's a maintenance exception. If there's an active biohazard emergency in the disposal wing, security protocols automatically redirect all personnel to containment response, which means the server room monitoring station gets temporarily unmanned. You want to fake an emergency. I want to create a real one, small enough to be contained quickly but serious enough to trigger full response protocols. She zooms in on the schematic, highlighting Chamber 14. This chamber has been flagged for maintenance for 2 weeks. Faulty pressure seal in the quantum buffer. If we trigger a decomposition event while the buffer is active, it'll create a containment breach. Nothing catastrophic, just enough to pull security away from the administrative wing for approximately 12 minutes. A decomposition event happens when organic matter gets introduced into an active quantum buffer. The matter starts breaking down at the molecular level, releasing energy that can damage the chamber's containment systems. We use controlled decomposition for disposal, but an uncontrolled event can cause temporary system failures. What organic matter? I ask. Yuki reaches into her jacket and pulls out a sealed container about the size of a fist. Inside is something dark and wet that I recognize after a moment as tissue samples from the medical research lab on the 2nd floor. Liver tissue. Approximately 200 grams. I requisitioned it yesterday for disposal testing purposes. If we introduce it into Chamber 14's buffer while the pressure seal is failing, the system will interpret it as a contamination event and trigger emergency protocols. And while security is dealing with that, I access the server room. You have 11, maybe 12 minutes. The server interface requires biometric authentication, but your retinal scan should work. Disposal technicians have elevated clearance for evidence documentation purposes. Once you're in, you need to copy everything. All executive logs, all override records, all internal communications relating to reclamation events. She hands me a data drive the size of my thumbnail. This has custom encryption. Plug it into any port and it'll automatically scrape the database. Should take about 8 minutes. I look at the drive in my palm. this tiny object that represents the difference between complicity and resistance. If they review the security footage, they'll see me entering the server room during an emergency. I'll be erasing the footage. I've been learning the security system architecture for 3 months. Yuki's expression is absolutely certain, no trace of doubt or hesitation. This works if we commit to it. If you hesitate, if you second guess, if you stop to think about consequences, we're dead. You have to move like this is just another disposal job, clinical, efficient, no emotions. The irony would be funny if it wasn't so accurate. 6 years of training myself to see horror as work, to process the unbearable, and now that skill set is the only thing that might keep me alive. When? I ask. Today, end of shift, 3:15 p.m. We clock out normally, then I trigger the decomposition event remotely using the maintenance override I documented last month. You enter the administrative wing while security responds. 12 minutes later, we're both gone. And then what? Even if we get the data, what do we do with it? Yuki's jaw tightens. We figure that out after we survive today. We separate and go to our respective stations. The morning shift is routine. No reclamation events, just standard chamber maintenance and documentation review. I spend 4 hours calibrating injector loads and running equipment diagnostics, my hands moving through familiar motions while my brain cycles through everything that could go wrong. Security could review yesterday's footage and notice me accessing the manifest archive. Mr. Simon could flag me for behavioral monitoring and restrict my clearance. The decomposition event could cause more damage than expected and trap me in the administrative wing during full facility lockdown. Or it could work, and I could have proof that Telecorp is running a corporate assassination program. At 2:47 p.m., Royce approaches my station. He's moving slowly, each step careful, and up close I can see that he looks worse than he did last night. The burn scars on his forearms are darker, almost purple, and there's a tremor in his right hand that wasn't there before. "Walk with me," he says. I follow him to the observation corridor outside the disposal chambers. It's empty at this hour, just blank walls and sealed doors, and the quiet hum of environmental systems keeping everything at precise temperature and humidity levels. Royce stops at chamber 19, the one where Daniel died, and stares at the door like he can see through the reinforced steel. "I need to tell you something," he says, "about why I really brought you to see that reclamation event last night. You wanted me to know the truth. I wanted you to care." Royce turns to look at me and his eyes are hollow, carved out. I've worked in disposal for 19 years. I've incinerated 463 reclamation events. For the first 14 years, I believed what they told me. That these were accidents, statistical inevitability, the unavoidable cost of a system that serves billions of people. Then 6 months ago, they put my daughter in a chamber. The words sit in the air between us, heavy and immovable. Her name was Rebecca. She was 26. She worked as an engineer for a research firm developing alternative teleportation technologies, stuff that could compete with Telecorp's monopoly. Safer buffers, better error correction, redundant reconstruction protocols. Royce's voice is completely flat, drained of everything except the mechanical need to speak. She sent me a message 3 days before she died. Said she'd discovered something in Telecorp's public safety reports. The failure rates didn't match the internal data she'd seen through a source at the company. She was going to file a regulatory complaint. He pulls out his wristband and displays an image. A young woman with dark hair and Royce's sharp features, smiling at the camera with the kind of genuine happiness that looks foreign on someone who works in this industry. They killed her on a Tuesday morning, routine jump to a conference downtown, Category 3 reclamation, fused with her briefcase and approximately 30 kilograms of chamber material. Still alive when I arrived. I don't ask if he was the one who administered the catalyst. I can see the answer in the purple discoloration of his scars, the tremor in his hand, the way he can't look away from chamber 19's door. I knew then. I'd known for years, probably, but I couldn't let myself see it because seeing it meant accepting what I'd been doing. What I was. Royce deactivates the image and his daughter's face disappears. I've been documenting everything since then. Override codes, executive access logs, internal communications. Trying to find proof that would matter, that would be undeniable. But the system is designed to protect itself. Every piece of evidence I find just leads to more questions, more layers of authorization, more people involved. How many people? In Telecorp? At least 40 executives with override access. In the government? I don't know. I've seen authorization codes from the National Security Administration, from the Interior Ministry, from departments that don't officially exist. He finally looks at me instead of the chamber door. This isn't just corporate murder, James. It's state policy. They're using the teleportation network to eliminate targets without trials, without evidence, without any of the legal protections that are supposed to exist. Activists, whistleblowers, foreign agents, domestic dissidents, anyone who threatens the system gets flagged for removal. The implications spread outward like cracks in glass. If the government is sanctioning these murders, then exposing them isn't just attacking Telecorp. It's attacking the entire infrastructure of control that's been built on top of teleportation technology. You're telling me this because you think I'm planning something, I say. I'm telling you this because I want you to understand what you're up against. Royce reaches into his jacket and pulls out a data chip, old-style hardware that requires a physical reader. Everything I've documented is on here. Names, dates, authorization codes, internal communications, 47 confirmed assassination events over the past 18 months, plus another 36 suspected cases from the previous 2 years. All the evidence I could gather before they started monitoring me too closely. I take the chip and feel the weight of it. This tiny object containing proof of systematic murder. Why are you giving this to me? Because I can't carry it anymore. Royce's hand is shaking badly now, the tremor spreading up his arm. I thought I could. I thought if I documented everything, if I built an undeniable case, I could find a way to expose it without destroying the world that depends on this technology. But there's no clean solution. Either we maintain the system and let them keep killing people in secret, or we burn it all down and watch millions suffer when teleportation becomes too risky to use. So what are you going to do? Royce looks back at Chamber 19 and his expression is peaceful, almost relieved. I'm going to jump. Tonight. I'm going to walk into a teleportation hub and I'm going to transmit myself through a system I know is compromised. They won't even have to trigger an override. I'm already flagged for monitoring, already marked as a liability. The algorithm will take care of the rest. That's suicide. That's escape. He turns and starts walking toward the exit, his gait unsteady. You have 12 hours, maybe less. Mr. Simon authorized surveillance on both you and Yuki Tamada this morning. You're being watched. If you try to run, they'll reclaim you. If you try to fight, they'll reclaim you. Your only option is to act before they do. I watch him leave. This man who taught me how to see horror as work, how to incinerate people and file paperwork and maintain the system. He's been carrying the truth for 6 months and it's hollowed him out, carved away everything except the mechanical need to keep moving until he can't anymore. I have the data chip in my hand, Yuki's plan in my head, and approximately 4 hours before Mr. Simon decides I'm a problem that needs solving. At 3:12 p.m., I meet Yuki in the prep room. She's already activated the maintenance override for Chamber 14, her wristband displaying a countdown. When the timer hits 0, the tissue samples will be introduced into the active buffer and the decomposition event will trigger emergency protocols. Royce gave me more data, I tell her, showing her the chip. Everything he's documented. Government authorization codes, internal communications, 83 suspected assassinations. Yuki's eyes widen. That's enough. That's more than enough. We leak this and there's no way they can suppress it. Royce also said we're being watched. We have hours, not days. Then we do this now. She checks the countdown again. 2:14. When the alert goes out, you move. Don't hesitate, don't think, just go. The countdown reaches 0. Somewhere in the disposal wing, Chamber 14's quantum buffer receives 200 grams of liver tissue and starts trying to process it. The decomposition begins immediately, organic molecules breaking down and releasing energy in patterns the system wasn't designed to handle. Alarms activate throughout the facility, a rapid tone that indicates containment breach. I watch Yuki's screen as security protocols engage, personnel being redirected to the disposal wing, biohazard teams mobilizing. The server room monitoring station shows 2 security officers leaving their posts, heading toward the emergency. Go, Yuki says. Now. I move through the facility corridors, my badge held ready. I pass 3 people on the way to the administrative wing, and none of them look at me twice, just another technician responding to the emergency. I take the stairs to the 4th floor and find the server room exactly where Yuki's schematic indicated. A reinforced door with a biometric scanner. I place my eye against the scanner and wait. The system processes my retinal pattern, cross-references my clearance level, and after 3 seconds that feel like 3 hours, the light turns green. Access granted. During containment alerts, disposal tech's forensic override keys temporarily elevate our clearance to level 9 for evidence preservation. The server room's temperature maintained at exactly 15 degrees Celsius to prevent the machines from overheating. Black monolithic servers line both walls, no lights or indicators, just solid rectangles of computing power that process every jump in the Northern Territories. I find the executive access terminal in the back corner and activate it with my badge. The interface loads. I have 11 minutes. I plug in Yuki's data drive and watch the screen as the encryption protocol activates. The drive starts scraping the database, copying every file marked with executive oversight authorization. 8 minutes remaining. The drive continues copying. I stand perfectly still, listening for footsteps in the corridor outside, watching the countdown on my wristband. Somewhere below me, Yuki is erasing security footage and managing the decomposition event, making sure the emergency lasts exactly long enough for me to finish. 5 minutes. New files appear on the screen. I see my own name listed in the directory. I open it and find 3 months of surveillance data. My work patterns, my communications, my access logs. A note from Mr. Simon dated this morning. Subject demonstrates recognition indicators during Caraway reclamation event. Psychological profile suggests emotional attachment may compromise operational security. Recommend enhanced monitoring and preparation of contingency protocols. Contingency protocols means they're preparing to kill me. 3 minutes. I find another file with Yuki's name. Same surveillance, same monitoring, same recommendations, but hers is dated 3 weeks ago, which means she's been under observation since before Daniel died. They've been waiting for her to act, documenting her data collection, building a case. 1 minute. The drive finishes copying. I eject it and slip it into my pocket, then close the terminal interface and wipe the access log. The room looks exactly as I found it. No evidence I was here except for the 11-minute gap in the security footage that Yuki is currently attributing to system errors during the emergency. I leave the server room and take the stairs down to the ground level. The emergency alarms have stopped, replaced by a facility-wide announcement that containment has been restored and normal operations are resuming. I walk toward the exit, my badge in my hand, and I'm almost through the door when someone calls my name. Mr. Simon is standing by the security checkpoint, tablet in his hands. He's not blocking my path, but his presence is enough to stop me. "Mr. Aldrin," he says. "Interesting timing for a visit to the administrative wing." "Equipment requisition forms," I say, keeping my voice level. "We're running low on thermal catalyst." "Of course." He makes a note on his tablet. "I'm sure the requisition office was very helpful despite the emergency." He knows. He doesn't have proof yet, but he knows something happened, and he's letting me know that he knows so I understand exactly how much danger I'm in. "Is there something else?" I ask. Just a reminder that your next psychological evaluation is scheduled for Friday. It's important that we maintain regular monitoring of all personnel who work with sensitive materials. His eyes find mine and hold them, particularly when those personnel show signs of emotional stress or compromised judgment. I'll be there. I'm sure you will. He steps aside, creating a clear path to the exit. Have a good evening, Mr. Aldrin. I walk out of the facility and don't look back. My wristband vibrates as soon as I'm outside. Message from Yuki with a single address and no other information. I recognize it immediately. It's in the old transit district, part of the pre-teleportation infrastructure that's been abandoned for 15 years. I take ground transport to the address and find myself in a section of the city I've never visited. Streets lined with empty buildings that used to house ticket offices and maintenance facilities for the old subway system. The entrance Yuki indicated is a stairwell leading underground, the door hanging half open on broken hinges. I descend into darkness, using my wristband's light to navigate. The stairs end at a platform that once served as a passenger waiting area, now just empty concrete and steel rails that lead into tunnels going nowhere. Yuki is sitting on a bench that's been bolted to the platform for 70 years, her wristband the only source of light in the space. "Did you get it?" she asks. I show her the data drive. Everything. Override logs, authorization codes, 83 confirmed or suspected assassinations, plus Royce's documentation. Then we have them. Yuki stands up and her shadow stretches across the platform like something pulled too thin. We leak this to every journalist, every regulatory agency, every public forum we can find. Simultaneous release so they can't suppress it all. By tomorrow morning, everyone will know what Telecorp has been doing. And then what? Yuki looks at me like I've said something incomprehensible. Then they're exposed, she says. Then they can't keep killing people. They'll deny it. They'll call it fabricated data from disgruntled employees. They'll use their government connections to classify everything as state secrets and prosecute anyone who publishes it. I sit down on the bench and feel how cold the metal is even through my clothes. And even if they can't suppress it, even if the evidence is undeniable, what happens to the 8 million people who use teleportation every day? What are you talking about? The system works 99.9999% of the time. The true random failure rate is 0.0001%, about 1 in a million. The rest of the failures, what looks like the remaining sliver of the statistics, are deliberate murders. If we expose that, we don't just destroy Telecorp's reputation. We undermine public confidence in the entire technology. I pull out the data drive and hold it up to the light from Yuki's wristband. People will stop jumping. Not everyone, but enough. Transportation networks will collapse, supply chains will fail, medical emergencies, food distribution, emergency services, everything that depends on instant travel will break down. We'll trade secret murders for public chaos. Yuki stares at me, and I watch her work through the implications, see the certainty in her expression crack and fracture. So we do nothing. We let them keep killing people? I don't know. The admission feels like defeat. I'm trying to figure out if there's a choice that doesn't involve mass casualties either way. There's always a choice. The voice comes from the tunnel entrance, and we both turn to see Royce emerging from the darkness. He's carrying nothing, no bag or equipment, just walking with that careful, deliberate gait. You can choose to maintain the system and let the murders continue. You can choose to expose the system and watch society fracture when people lose faith in the technology that holds it together. Or you can choose to accept that both options are terrible and pick the one you can live with. I thought you were going to jump, I say. I am. In about 3 hours. I wanted to talk to you first. Royce sits down on the bench beside me, moving like every joint hurts. I've spent 6 months trying to find a third option, some way to expose the assassinations without destroying public trust. There isn't one. The system is too entrenched. Too many people depend on it. Too many powerful interests benefit from it. You either blow it all up or you maintain the status quo. Your daughter would want us to expose it, Yuki says. My daughter is dead. Royce's voice is quiet but absolute. What she'd want doesn't matter anymore. What matters is what you're willing to carry. If you leak that data, people will die. Not from direct murder, but from the cascading failures when transportation infrastructure collapses. Some of those deaths will be your fault, just like the assassinations are Telecorp's fault. You'll spend the rest of your life knowing you chose one group of victims over another. And if we don't leak it, then you become what I've been for 6 months. Someone who knows the truth and does nothing about it. Someone who watches people die and files the paperwork and pretends the system is worth preserving. He pulls out his wristband and displays an image. His daughter again. That same genuine smile. Rebecca told me 3 days before she died that evil isn't usually dramatic. It's usually banal. People making reasonable-sounding decisions that serve their interests while other people suffer. Bureaucracy instead of malice. Forms instead of weapons. He deactivates the image and stands up slowly. You have the data. You have the proof. What you do with it is your decision. Just understand that either way, you're choosing who lives and who dies. There's no option where your hands stay clean. Royce walks toward the tunnel that leads deeper into the abandoned transit system, heading toward whichever hub he's chosen for his final jump. I watch him disappear into the darkness and understand that I'm watching a man commit suicide to escape a choice he couldn't make. Yuki and I sit in the abandoned station for a long time, neither of us speaking. Above us, the city continues functioning. Millions of people jumping from point to point without knowing that the technology they trust is being used to murder anyone who threatens the system. Below us, old rails lead into tunnels that no longer serve any purpose. Infrastructure made obsolete by the very technology that's now killing people. I can't carry this, Yuki finally says. If we don't release it, if we just let them keep killing people, I won't survive that. I'll end up like Royce, hollowed out and counting down to the day I can't do it anymore. And if we do release it, then I'll carry the guilt of every person who dies in the chaos afterward. But at least I'll have tried to stop the murders. She looks at me, and her expression is raw, stripped of everything except exhaustion. Can you live with being the person who sent it, knowing what happens next? I think about Daniel's hand against the observation window, 3 fingers down, trying to tell me something I spent 6 years refusing to see. About Royce's daughter, 26 years old and smiling in a photograph that's all that remains of her. About 47 confirmed murders and another 36 suspected cases and the systematic elimination of anyone who discovers the truth. About what happens if we expose it, the transportation collapse, the supply chain failures, the cascading breakdowns of systems that depend on instant travel. The people who'll die because ambulances can't reach them fast enough, because food shipments don't arrive, because the infrastructure of modern life suddenly has gaps that used to be filled by teleportation. And I think about what happens if we don't. The next 47 victims, the next 83, the next 100. People like Daniel who discover something they shouldn't and get erased by a system designed to protect itself. Can you live with being the person who didn't? I ask. Yuki's face crumples and she presses both hands against her eyes, like she's trying to hold something in. When she speaks, her voice is muffled but clear. No, I don't think I can. Then we send it, not to journalists or regulatory agencies. They'll suppress it or spin it or classify it as state secrets. We send it directly to the families. Every person on that list of 83 victims. We find their families and we send them everything. The proof of how their loved ones died. The authorization codes. The evidence that it was murder. They'll leak it themselves, Yuki says, understanding immediately. We're not the source. They are. 83 families demanding justice, sharing evidence, making noise. Telecorp can't suppress that many independent sources. It gives the victims' families agency. They get to decide what happens next, not us. Yuki pulls her hands away from her eyes and nods. We need contact information. Next of kin data from the personnel records. I can get that. The Manifest Archive has emergency contact information for all passengers. I pull out the data drive and hold it between us. This happens tonight. We find the families, we send the evidence, and then we disappear. By morning, this is public. By tomorrow, everything changes. What about you? Your clearance will be revoked. You'll never work in the industry again. Good. I stand up and feel how my legs don't want to support my weight anymore. I've been an executioner for 6 years. I'm done. We leave the abandoned station and separate, each heading to different locations to avoid being tracked together. I go back to my apartment and spend 4 hours cross-referencing the victim list with personnel records, building a database of family contacts. Daniel's wife, Michelle Carraway. Royce's emergency contact. His ex-wife, Rebecca's mother. 47 confirmed victims and 36 suspected cases. 83 families who lost someone and were told it was an unfortunate accident. At 11:34 p.m., I start sending the messages. Each one contains the full data archive. Override logs, authorization codes, internal communications, evidence of systematic murder. Each one includes simple instructions. This is proof of how your loved one died. Share it, make copies, don't let them erase it. By midnight, all 83 messages have been sent. By 12:47 a.m., the first responses start coming back. Questions, disbelief, rage. By 2:15 a.m., the data starts appearing on public forums, uploaded by family members who can't contain what they've learned. By 4 a.m., news outlets are running stories about potential teleportation safety concerns, carefully worded to avoid libel, but clearly based on the leaked evidence. By 6:30 a.m., Telecorp's stock has dropped 47%, and emergency sessions of Parliament are being called. I watch it unfold on my wall screen, this cascade of consequences that I set in motion. Somewhere in the city, Yuki is watching the same thing, carrying the same weight. Somewhere, or maybe nowhere, maybe he's already ash residue in a waste block. Royce has made his final jump. I don't feel victorious. I don't feel righteous. I feel like someone who just chose between two groups of victims and will spend the rest of my life wondering if I made the right choice. My wristband vibrates at 7:12 a.m. Unknown number. I answer and hear Mr. Simon's voice, perfectly calm. Mr. Aldrin, I trust you're watching the news. Yes. I want you to know that we're currently reviewing all facility security footage and personnel records from yesterday. We'll have a complete understanding of what occurred within the next few hours. He pauses. I also want you to know that your actions have been noted and will be addressed appropriately. I don't work for you anymore. You're correct. Your employment has been terminated effective immediately for violation of your non-disclosure agreement and unauthorized access to classified materials. We'll be forwarding your case to the appropriate legal authorities. Another pause. I hope the recognition you receive is worth the consequences, Mr. Aldrin. He disconnects. I sit in my apartment and watch the news coverage continue, the evidence spreading faster than Telecorp can suppress it. Michelle Carraway appears on a live stream, holding a photograph of Daniel, demanding answers. Other families join her. The systematic nature of the failures becomes undeniable. The government issues statements about investigating the allegations. Telecorp issues statements about cooperating fully with authorities. None of it changes the fact that I've helped destroy public trust in the technology that millions of people depend on. By noon, teleportation usage has dropped 63%. Emergency services are being strained. Food shipments are delayed. The infrastructure of modern civilization is fracturing in real time. I've traded secret murders for public chaos, and I don't know if I made the right choice. I just know I made the only choice I could live with.